Hello everybody and welcome back to another Oscar prediction video where today I will be taking a look at the category of Best Animated Feature. So, in my last video where I talked about original song, I was feeling a bit dejected about the whole Emilia Perez situation, and I talked about how I want to be proud of the Academy Awards, and I get really excited when they do the right thing. And fortunately, this is a category where I actually can be proud of the Oscars because the 5 nominees for Best Animated Film are really great films. Like, these were the top 5 that everybody was predicting. We kind of knew that this was the top 5 ever since November when Moana 2 got bad reviews, but there's a reason why every single regional critics group nominated these 5 films. I'm pretty sure if I were to watch all of the available animated films that came out this year, I would still come away with the conclusion that this is the correct 5, because they really are all fantastic. And none of the movies here would make a bad winner. The weakest movie in this lineup is better than the best movie in certain lineups. And so I'm really excited to get into it, and I've watched all 5 of these films. I highly encourage you to do the same. The stupid anti-animation bias that some people have, some people think that these movies are just for kids, and I assure you they are not. All 5 of these movies can be enjoyed by people of all ages. Actually, one of them should probably not be shown to a child, but more on that in a minute. They're just really great pieces of work, and I'm so happy to get to talk about them now. 5th most likely to win is Memoir of a Snail. So this is the one I was alluding to that you should not show to a child. I just watched this film, and it's one of those movies where after it's over, you need to take a minute to recover, maybe curl up into a ball and cry somewhere, because what a picture. This was so powerful, so moving, and it is the rare R-rated animated film. You don't get a whole lot of that these days, and some of them are just very crude, like South Park or Sausage Party, and just trying to be crass for the sake of it. And this is actually a really mature, heavy story that is told with a slight bit of whimsy with the medium of animation, but that's only just to get you through a really relentlessly bleak story. And I know I'm not doing the best job of selling it, but it really is a powerful movie that I'm very glad that I saw. And it's not going to win. The reason it's not going to win, on top of this being probably the least seen of all the nominees, I think a lot of voters are not going to be prepared for it if they do see it, because it's so rare to get an animated movie that is this mature, let alone this dark. The places where this movie goes are really heavy, and a lot of voters are going to be uncomfortable with this film. And that's okay. I think the best art is the art that does make people a little uncomfortable. But I'm very glad that the animation branch went for it, because it would have been so easy to pass it over. But this is a great film. I'm very glad that it's here, but it's definitely going to be too much for the Academy at large to vote for. 4th most likely to win is Inside Out 2. Well, from the least commercial of these movies to the most commercial of these movies, Disney and Pixar, I will be honest, when I first saw this movie, I was a little down on it. I think I just had such high expectations based on the original Inside Out, and I was a little bit disappointed that a lot of the plot beats seemed to be repeated from the first film. But in hindsight, the more time has passed, the more I do really respect this movie, because this is a really hard... This and the first film, this series, has got to be really hard to write for. What I really admire about both films is that you could make an edit of the movie where it's just the Riley scenes in the real world and the story would still make sense. And everything that happens with Riley in the real world feels so grounded, and everything with the emotions is so heightened and over the top and cartoony, and it really is just about this one character, and all of the emotions are just this giant metaphor of what is going on in the head of this character in a way that is really insightful and really witty at the same time. And both movies are really great. Obviously, the first one is always going to hold a special place in my heart, but I think this sequel could have been a lot worse, and it is I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that Pixar can still crank out a good movie every now and again, unlike Disney, apparently. I'm glad that it's here. Now, when it first came out and when it made so much money, there was talk that it could potentially win. But so far, I don't believe it has won a single Critics Regional Group Award. And I don't know if people are just tired with Disney or whatever. This would be a fine winner if it won. It's a good movie. But I do think there is a sense of Disney has been rewarded enough, particularly Pixar. We've given them 11 Best Animated Feature Oscars. And now, the past couple of years, we've really been branching it out and giving to more deserving groups. So, I mean, this is a good movie. It would not be a bad win, but no sequel has won in this category outside of the Toy Story movies. And while Inside Out 2 is a good movie, I ultimately don't think it has the precursor support it would need to win this. Third most likely to win is Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. Okay, so this movie does have a pretty major precursor. It won the BAFTA for Animated Feature. As expected, Wallace and Gromit are very, very beloved in the UK. And it's one of those franchises that is just really, really difficult to dislike. I think like Winnie the Pooh or like Sesame Street, you gotta love Wallace and Gromit. They just have such a great energy to them, and this particular movie, while it might not be as grand as The Were-Rabbit, this movie has great animation, amazing humor. It's one of the funniest movies I've seen this year. The stuff that they do with the Feathers McGraw character is amazing. The action in the movie is great. It's just a really, really fun movie that is just guaranteed to put a smile on your face. Notably, it is the only film in this list that is probably not going to make you cry, which is a great selling point. However, maybe it's not the best selling point if your goal is to win an Oscar. Obviously, the original Wallace and Gromit did win this category, which had some less competition, but still a very deserving win. And as I've said with every nominee, it would not make a bad winner. It is a fun movie, but you can argue it kind of has the least to say out of all the nominees because it doesn't really go to the dramatic, emotional places that the other nominees do. It has BAFTA, but that's pretty much the only thing it does have. So while I know that this is going to get votes, I know that this franchise has its fans, I think there's two primary contenders in the race, and Wallace and Gromit is a solid third place. Second most likely to win is Flow. Oh wow. Again, what a picture. Even more so, this is one of my favorite movies of the year, my second favorite film of the year currently, behind only I Saw the TV Glow, making it my favorite of all the movies that are Oscar nominated this year. This is a film about a group of animals trying to survive, and it's told entirely without dialogue, and it's just the pure magic of cinema as we get to know each of these characters and get to understand who they are and get to empathize with them, all without any of them saying a word. It really is magic. The fact that this was pulled off, especially for as cheap as it was, is just one of those things that needs to be seen to be believed. And there is a very real possibility that this could win the Oscar. And it would be deserving. It would be my vote. This movie, it won the Golden Globe, and it also won the Annie for Indie Animated Film. Now, there was some talk early on that this movie could potentially pull A Boy and the Heron and come up from behind. And when that was our most recent Best Animated Feature winner, there's certainly eyes on it to repeat this year, especially when initially the stats seem to be so identical. But there are some key differences between last year's race and this year's race. First of all, Hayao Miyazaki is an absolute legend, and the director of this movie does not quite have that same reputation, although he is very prolific on social media in the aftermath of this film's nominations. The other thing is that the film is just so small in many ways, and that does help it a lot. It did win a lot of early Critics Awards, but recently the Critics Awards started tying, and the thing is, I think this is a very close race, a closer race than a lot of people want to admit. But now that we have all the precursors, if I really, really have to make a choice, I'm not going with Flow. I'm going with number one most likely to win, The Wild Robot. So this year's race for animated feature has been really interesting, because at first it seemed like it was going to be a slam dunk for Wild Robot. As soon as the movie premiered at TIFF, we were like, this is happening. Wild Robot is going to win animated feature. It might even do better than that. But when the initial round of precursors started, and it was very, very close between Wild Robot and Flow, I remember thinking, why is Wild Robot not dominating these awards? And also, why is Wild Robot not getting nominated for more Best Picture awards like Spider-Verse was last year? And then when I saw Flow, I was like, oh, I get it now. Because both of these movies are doing very similar things. Like, they're both technically about a group of animals who have to survive bad weather. And there's kind of this implication in both that it's a post-climate change world. So both movies heavily about environmentalism and about coming together amidst our differences. The only difference is Wild Robot also has this other plot about motherhood that's sort of the main plot, and the animals coming together part is sort of secondary. But to be honest, when I watched Wild Robot, the animals coming together part was the part I liked better. And so with Flow, it's like they took just that part and they made it the whole movie. So both movies complement each other in a really, really interesting way. There's a lot of movies this year that would make great double features with each other, but Wild Robot and Flow, and I don't, even though I personally enjoy Flow a little bit better, I also can see that Wild Robot is probably going to be a lot of people's choice because it's the more accessible film. It does have dialogue, it does have more kid-friendly humor, and it does have this mother-son story at the center of it. Wild Robot is a great, great film. It's really, really fantastic. And it also would not be a bad winner. Either Wild Robot or Flow would be one of the best winners we've seen in this category's history, at least as far as the 2020s, this most recent decade. Either would be amazing. I actually was thinking recently that in the history of the Academy Awards, we have only seen 6 ties. And sometimes I wonder if we got another tie this year, what would it be? And I would personally really like it to be Flow and Wild Robot, because they would both be amazing winners, and they complement each other so well. But the question is, which one is going to win? And Wild Robot has Critics' Choice, PGA, and it swept the Annie Awards. And that is enough for me. I know that Spider-Verse did technically the same thing, but Boy and the Heron had also won the BAFTA, which Flow did not do. And that makes me a little bit more confident in Wild Robot's chances. On top of that, Spider-Verse was a sequel and also a part 1 that didn't have a conclusive ending. And Wild Robot is not a sequel, and it does have a conclusive ending, even though it does set up a potential sequel. And so, again, both movies are really fantastic. But I do think Wild Robot is going to be the film that appeals to the Academy at large. I know that Flow got the International Feature nomination, which is very big, but Wild Robot got nominated for score, and it got a surprise nomination for Best Sound. I don't think anyone saw that coming, and so it really does show a big show of support for the movie as a whole. Again, they're both really, really good, and I do wish they could both win. But I do think the Academy as a whole is more likely to go with Wild Robot, but I could be proven wrong. And it's worth pointing out, all 5 of these movies would be great winners. Go see these movies, they're great. If they make a joke about these movies are just for kids, I'm going to be so mad, because they're really not. They really are worth your time. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. And tune in next time when I will be taking a look at the category of Best Live Action Short Film. See you then.